Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 424. Today we're going to talk about the Builders Antiquity. So I believe a year or so ago I did a review for a game called The Builders, the Middle Ages, and this is sort of a follow-up or prequel in some ways to that game. So if you're familiar with that game, it's a lot like that, but there's also some differences. It has a little bit more, I don't want to say complexity, but there's like a little bit more going on in terms of the rules, but there's also a little bit more going on in terms of the brutality, so to speak. So let's take a look at it. You're basically acquiring different builders and then drafting these kind of schematics for different buildings and machines, and then taking actions to apply the workers and the different skills to build that much and then get to 17 victory points, and then whoever does that will trigger at the end of the game, and then that is the winner. So let's take a look at how it works and I'll tell you what I think. So as I said, the Builders Antiquity is very much like the Builders Middle Ages, but there's a real progression out of sort of antiquity into progressively more modern and a more advanced time period. And here you can see all of the pieces. You've got building cards and worker cards just like before. Each player is again going to get a random apprentice card and randomly determine the first player. Everybody's going to get an equal number of turns, and then everybody will start off with a little bit of money. And here you can see a supply, a diminished supply. There's not as many actual worker cards in this particular version, and the workers, as you can see, have different stats. So for example, this laborer has sort of a level 2 in pottery, whereas the master has level 2 in woodworking or level 3 in brick. And then each worker is going to have a different cost to actually put them in to start working on building a particular building. And the buildings are very much the same as the old game. You can see this Lighthouse of Alexandria. You can see the different types of skills that it requires and the amount of those skills. And you can see the number of coins it's going to give you when you construct it, as well as the number of victory points, in this case 5. And once again, there are also machines, in this case a saw. So you can build this and it'll give you victory points, but when you flip it over, you can actually use it sort of as a permanent worker. And then at the top here, we've got what's really different about this game. So you've got tools and prisoners, loans, as well as these clear plastic cards, which will actually educate workers. Now tools, we can take a look at these. When you go and get a tool, you can go and dig through and pick one that you want. And you can see these can upgrade different types of skills that you can attach to the worker. Now next we've got prisoners here, and these are new types of workers. These will cost you $7, and you can see they're actually negative victory points at the end of the game unless you free them. Now you can play them for free once you acquire them, but you need to free them or else they're going to be worth negative victory points. Now once you free them, it is going to cost you money. You do have to pay them to actually work for you. Now next here you can take a loan. You can see here you can get a loan for $10. It's going to be worth -2 victory points if you don't pay it back, but you can see it costs you $15 to pay it back. Now finally, we have these educational or knowledge tiles, and these you can get for $7. Then you equip them on top of a worker, and you can see it upgrades whatever skill you wish. So the gameplay is basically exactly the same as the original Builders game. You get 3 actions on your turn, so you could take a new building contract, you can attach a worker to a building. In this case, you could take a loan or buy a prisoner or buy a tool. So you get the 3 actions that you can do. And then beyond that, it costs you $5 per action. So your 4th action costs you $5 on top of whatever that action may cost you. So it's possible to sort of build up and get a good money supply and take a whole bunch of actions and kind of have that killer turn, just like in the original. And you play until 17 points, so you're going to be constructing buildings and things. And then everybody gets equal number of turns, and then whoever has the most points is the winner. So let's quickly go over what all those actions are, just as a refresher if you've never played the original, and then I'll tell you what I think about the game. So the first thing you might do is start a construction. In that case, you just choose one of the buildings from the display and then you put it in front of you, and now you started. So you've used up an action just taking that. The next thing you might do is recruit a worker. So you simply take a worker from the display, and then once per turn you can make an investment, and that's this top row of cards. So you can do one of these things here. So the first thing you can do is take a tool and then you just purchase it for $2, and then now when you send a worker, you can equip that tool to that worker at no additional cost. Now, the next thing you could do is you could buy a prisoner. Now you can't equip tools to a prisoner until you free them, but you pay $7, you get the prisoner, and that's it. Once you free them, you can actually equip the tool. And of course you can take a loan to get the money, or you can actually get a knowledge card and then permanently attach it to one of your workers. Now it is important to know that you can only do one of those sort of investment actions at the top once per turn. So you can only do one of those. And the other thing is you can actually wait to pay back your loans at the end of the game. You don't have to pay it back during the game. So right before you do final scoring, you can pay $15 back to get those minus victory points out of your supply. And you can also free the prisoners and make them regular workers that aren't worth negative victory points this time at the end of the game. However, you've got to pay $5 per prisoner that you free if you wait till the end of the game. Now normally for one of your actions you can free a prisoner, so you just take it and flip it over. That's your action, they're free. Because remember, if above and beyond your 3 actions you want to use more actions, it's going to cost you $5. Well, if you do it at the end of the game, it's kind of like you're using one of those sort of above and beyond actions, so you've got to pay $5. So you want to do those before the end of the game, but the loans you can just wait and pay bills back at the end. Now the next thing you can do is, of course, take a worker and send it to a building to start working on that building. Now the first time you send a worker to a single building, it costs you 1 action. If you send another worker to that same building on the same turn, that second worker is going to cost you 2 actions. If you send a third worker to the same building, it's going to cost you 3 actions. So this is another instance where you might save up some money and then use up a bunch of those actions, because if you send 3 workers to the same building, that's going to cost you 1 plus 2 plus 3, a total of 6 actions. Now, if you send them to different buildings, then that sort of penalty doesn't apply. In a similar way, you can just take money from the bank. So for 1 action you can take $1, for 2 actions you can take 3, and for 3 actions you could take 6. Okay, so that is the Builder's Antiquity. Now what do I think of it? Well, I definitely do like it more than the original game. I did like the original game. And actually, if I remember right, I said it kind of reminded me of Splendor, and it kind of does. We're sort of just taking a thing and then waiting to sort of build up, and then in Splendor, you're sort of just, you're comboing and you're getting like, oh, I can get free stuff, I get free stuff, I get free stuff. Whereas this is similar, where you're sort of taking workers until you get a bunch of workers, and then you can sort of slam them in there and they build and they get you money. So it's similar, but also very different. Now, the one sort of niggling issue that I had with the original was you could get kind of screwed over by the flop of the building. So if somebody was sort of set up to take a really good building with a bunch of points on it, then it seemed like that could kind of tweak it a little bit in their favor. And I don't want to oversell that, but it was just something that we had seen after several plays of it was, oh, okay, you got all the high point buildings, and yeah, we've got cool workers, but there's nothing really worth a lot of points to build with it. Now in this, it somehow seems to try to fix that, and I think it's because you can get really beefy workers sort of apart from, the splash of workers, and so you can sort of be set up and be in a way to where it's more important to get those kinds of workers into your supply and be able to do more of it. So there's a little bit more focus on that, and then so it's sort of balancing with that. So, and I don't know if the card distribution or anything is different, but we hadn't seen that. I've only played this 3 times now, so I haven't really seen that where the flop kind of really dictated the game. It's been a lot closer and a lot more interesting and a lot more brutal, because you can really sort of get some really super workers, with like a tool and educated and all that stuff, and then you can throw them in there without having to pay the worker fee if it's a prisoner. And so you can get this kind of freebies in there, and then worry about sort of spending your actions on later turns to free them, so you're not locked in a quagmire. So there's a real kind of good trade-off with all of that. So overall, it's really a lot more interesting of a game, because you've got the sort of thematic thing of like, you get prisoners and it's antiquity, and you're freeing them and letting them go, and you've got sort of the tool development, the education, they're getting smarter and more efficient with their time, and it's got the good solid gameplay of the original game. So if you haven't tried the other one, I would just go right for this one and pick this one up. And if you're really enamored with the other one, this is definitely, I think, a better game, a more interesting game, and open to a little bit more, I don't know, we'll call it brutality, but you can really get some cool stuff. And so I think experienced players will maybe get into this one a little bit more, and it'll be more rewarding after more plays than the other one will be. And so I think it's good. I think it's a nice, good, balanced, solid game. And it comes in a great little box filler. It's a great lunch game, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you. So definitely take a look at this one if you like kind of that Splendor or the old Builders or that kind of game where it's real quick, good, chunky, meaty, not really a micro game, but a good lunchtime filler game with some good decisions. So anyway, thanks.